Living away from your native country can be a daunting prospect. For the Scandinavians in Lincolnshire and East Yorkshire, there's SCOL, Scandinavian Club of Lincolnshire. And SCOL also means cheers in many Nordic languages. Norwegian Kari Moss Wright founded the club nearly 40 years ago as a place for people to meet.
I set up the Scandinavian Club of Lincolnshire, which we called SCOL, 38 years ago. I was chairman for the first 36 years, and why we set it up was it was quite a lot of Scandinavians here. At that time, it was difficult to go backwards and forwards to Scandinavia. So in a way, we established like a big family of Scandinavians. And also, we act as a mini embassy in a way, because if people need information about Scandinavia, they come to us. If they need exhibitions, they come to us. We arrange for choirs to come over, we arrange for exhibitions, and we are a link between Scandinavia and Lincolnshire.
The club is made up of many nationalities who come together for important social events.
Numbers in SCOL of Scandinavians and their partners and their children at one stage reached 200. Now we are less than that, possibly because it's much easier to get home. When I say home, Scandinavia. So it was very important when I set it up that for the people to have connections. It was like big families. It was like a big family, basically, and that was very nice. We had connections, and we've done lots of events, which is celebrating Christmas and things like that, typical events. And of course, this was with us having different Scandinavian nationality. And when we set it up, we had Swedish, Danish, Norwegian, Finnish and Icelandic, and even a Faroese.
Kari is a guide at Lincoln Cathedral and is proud of the Norwegian connection the place has with the cathedral in Trondheim.
It's the twin cathedral of Nidaros Cathedral in Trondheim. And we had a stonemason who came from Norway here in the 13th century. He carved some pillars in the cathedral here. Then later he went back to Norway, to Trondheim, but the cathedral in Trondheim is called Nidaros, and he carved exactly similar colors there. We also have his crossmason's mark. It was called the crossmaster, and all stonemasons have their own mark, and his mark is like a cross with holes like that, and this you can find both in the cathedral here and in the cathedral in Trondheim.
Language isn't a barrier in the club either, as many of them speak English, but the Nordic languages are very similar.
The Norwegians, Swedes and Danes can understand each other. We have something called talking Nordic, but some words are completely opposite in the different languages. And because some people have got more difficulty in understanding, for example, I'm Norwegian, I can understand Danish and Swedish. Some of the Danes and Swedes have difficulty in understanding me. And of course, what we also have in Scandinavia, in all the different countries, are different dialects. And the dialects are quite difficult for some other countries. So we have a tendency, unfortunately, to speak English together.
SCOL is not exclusively for Scandinavians. It also allows their British partners to be involved.
Most of us are females married to British men. And what we do like to do is to keep our traditions going. So, for example, at Christmas we got something called julebord, where I must say the Danes are fantastic cooks and they're in charge of the food. And we have then the typical Scandinavian foods with the cold table, what you call the smørgåsbord, which is a Swedish word. So we have those things. We used to also arrange film evenings, and we used to, when the children were small especially, and realized this is nearly 40 years ago since we started it, we used to go for walks with them, and it was just very nice to be together. And we had our English friends, of course, but we also had, and SCAL, the Scandinavian Club, was very special in a way, because we only allowed Scandinavians and their husbands or partners and their children to become members. We have extended it a bit because people are interested in Scandinavia, and if they are interested in Scandinavia, they can become what we call corporate members, which are people who travel over to Scandinavia a lot and like to have the connections.
Despite improved travel connections and the use of faster communication devices, SCAL still has a future as it's needed by those Nordic people.
Yes, I think it's a need for SCAL to exist, because it does mean that if people are in difficulty, for example, they can come to us and we will try to help them out. I have had 2 people recently who I helped out with different things happening. And it's important, and also it's difficult if people have problems or want to discuss it. It's difficult to get it all right in English, because you have the different nuances, or whatever it's called, and you have a much richer language in Britain, with many more words for one word. We will have one word, you'll have 3 or 4, and they all mean slightly different. So, yeah, I think it's our club is strong. Some of the Scandinavian societies in other areas, unfortunately, has had to close. We do not want to close. We want to continue. We enjoy it, and we've got a very good group of people together who are very keen on keeping SCAL going.
Our love for Nordic culture and life has strengthened. For Norway, they've always been thankful to Britain for the help given during the Second World War. Each year, a Christmas tree is given to London and one to Grimsby.
Of course, we've had all these films, brilliant films, basically done by Danish and Swedish. And that is very good publicity for Scandinavia here in Britain. And it's a very different life in Scandinavia compared to Britain. It used to be quite stiff and correct in Britain when I first came, and I was told very firmly that certain things are not discussed in polite society in Britain, while we were all open and talking about things. That was quite a big surprise to me when I came here. I said, well, why can't we talk about that? So you had to be a bit more, but we are very open, and also Scandinavians like the British very much. It goes back partly to the war from Norway's point of view, because Britain came and freed us. And so Britain has got a big, high star in Scandinavia. They like the British people. Unfortunately now we've got less connections than we had before. We used to have boats going from Immingham to Gothenburg, and we now have a freighter going from Immingham to Norway and to Sweden. Otherwise, we have to go down to Harwich and cross over to Denmark, and then cross over from there to Sweden and Finland and Norway. So the connections are maybe not quite as good as they were before, sea-wise, but of course, airplanes are so cheap these days.